嗨，各位好，歡迎翻到嚟嘅穎之友。今日咧，我開心請到一個猛人，係一個 financial 嘅猛人嚟喎。佢咧就係叫做Brian Gilder。Brian Gilder 咧就係 Certified Financial Planner，而家係一個即係註冊嘅顧問啦，financial 嘅顧問啦。咁佢亦都係一個作好多本書好出名嘅。咁佢亦都係上好多電視啊，美國嘅主流電視好似 ABC 啊、Fox 啊咁啦，去俾好多 financial advice 人嘅。咁我哋多謝佢上嚟同我哋傾偈。Hi Brian, hi, how are you doing?
Hi. Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for helping us and coming here be my guest. And Brian, he's a certified financial planner, and he also is a financial coach and the author. He has a book called Financial Playbook. And he also do something amazing. I really like it because he kind of make finance term very complicated, hard to understand into sport term. So make people really easy to understand and pick it up. How do you get the idea? I think it's a great idea.
How did I get the idea? Well, it's interesting you say it. I was actually in a fantasy football draft about, 8-9 years ago. And I made a...
No wonder you look so fit.
Oh, well.
Good looking too.
I try to stay, it's just like finances. I diversify what I eat. So I was in a fantasy football draft and I made a bad pick supposedly. And someone said I made a bad pick. And so he says, you picked this guy wrong. It was a bad move. And so this guy had this big notebook of information about drafting a fantasy football team. So I said, how did you get that notebook? How long did it take you to do it? He goes, about 3 months to put all this information together. So I said, how long does it take you to put your finances together? He goes, I can't stand it. He goes, I can't stand finances. So I said, this guy who does not like me has a great idea. If I could explain to him how finances work in sports terms, I probably could teach millions of other people who are sports fans how their finances work, because it's so important. I mean, it's so important, your finances.
I know.
So that's how I got the idea.
OK， 咁我問阿 Brian 咧，佢點樣佢可以做一樣好聰明嘅嘢？我覺得佢咧就係佢用因為 finance 咧，即係財政咧，好多人都唔係好明啊，又好難明白啊。咁佢用咧運動啊，譬如打波啊嗰啲名詞啊，代入去個 finance 度，咁等人哋好容易明白。咁佢上好多電視啊，同埋好多節目啊，都可以即係解釋俾人聽啊。咁啊變咗好 interesting， 好多人中意睇咯。I think it's great because make it not so boring, right? People think it's boring, complicated. So make it really fun and interesting. Yeah, I think it's great. So I know you have over 20 years experience. You look young.
Oh, well, some days I feel young when I'm coaching kids, and I feel like a senior citizen when I'm dealing with some people. So,
so you look good, but you have good experience. Good. I probably exercise really help, right? Because you are in the sport.
You have to.
Yeah, you're in good shape, looking good. That's why you're always on TV too. I saw him on TV like ABC, Fox, and a lot of interview. And thank you. He is very well known. And also he had a lot of he wrote a lot of books really well known too. It's like How to Know Money and also Little Millionaires. And a lot of books so people can, and the new book is the newest one, the Financial Playbook, right? Maybe later we can talk about more about your book, but right now it's very important because a lot of people you're gonna get a check, a stimulate check, a big check, right? So about $1,400 per person, and you have family of 5 is over like $7,000. So there's quite a lot of money, and surprisingly, usually people are like, oh, I'm gonna have to spend it or travel and go this, but right now cannot really travel. Right? A lot of people are thinking about how do I invest. So this is the best question for you.
That's a great question, and that's the big question right now. People are saying I'm getting this stimulus check, and people are already starting to get it in their bank accounts. And the question becomes, some people think it's a windfall. I think it's an opportunity for people to be able to get control of their finances. I think it's a good idea to maybe use this money for your credit card debt. Some people are way behind on credit card debt, where you could probably catch up on credit card debt. To me, credit card debt is one of the best investments you can make. When you're paying 15-20% interest on credit card debt, that's ridiculous. I can't stand
some even more.
So
it's crazy.
Oh yeah, some 25, 30. I'm trying to be trying to be nice.
Conservative, yeah, you're nice about for the credit company. I saw some, it's like, oh my God, I could believe people paying for it, you know?
Credit card debt is the worst thing out there. And it's an epidemic we have in this country. And I think that some people with their stimulus checks, I think this is a good time to try to put a dent in credit card debt. So I think that, to me, one of the best investments would be to pay off credit card debt, high interest rate credit card debt. I think also another issue that people don't realize is an emergency fund, having liquid cash in the bank. I've always said you should have at least 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses in the bank liquid. And I think during COVID over the last year, people have seen what has happened. And people who've had an emergency fund on the ready for COVID and lost their jobs or their business or had a small business, they were able to probably better get through this pandemic than people without an emergency fund. Because when people didn't have an emergency fund, they had to keep borrowing money on credit card debt. They couldn't pay their rent. They had to get, some people were afraid of getting foreclosed on. They were in forbearance where they couldn't make payments on their mortgage. So having an emergency fund is really important. I think some people are getting the stimulus check should probably put some of that money away. A rule I've been telling a lot of people, because a lot of people have been asking me, what do I do with the money? And I look at it as the 90-10 rule. And the 90% should go to necessity expenses. 10% should go to where I just want to do something. Maybe it's for a family trip. Maybe it's for taking the family somewhere, whatever you want to do. But make sure that 10%, that money you're going to do whatever you want with it, it has to be done in cash. We don't want to pile up a bunch of credit card debt. We just don't want to do that. Cash is king. We want to pay things off. And as far as investing, I mean, if some of that money can be used to maybe contributing to your 401k or an IRA, I think it's a good way to start getting a head start with some of your money right now when you get the stimulus checks, because it is quite a bit of money for many, many families.
Okay. Thank you。咁啊 Brian 咧就話我而家即係美國咧就好多人都會收到佢嘅 stimulus check 啦，成1,400蚊一個人，咁一家人咧，如果你5個人咧都收到7,000蚊喎，咁而家好多人咧都好 surprise， 通常啲人咧就一有錢就唔知點使晒佢噶嘛，美國人好似要使足佢噶嘛，但係而家咧好多人咧都講緊點樣投資喎，因為咧有許人啊未必都去到啦，咁啊就我哋有啲錢應該點樣用咧？就算你冇 stimulus check， 咁你平時有啲儲咗錢都應該點用啊？佢話第一個最重要咧就係要 pay off， 即係你要還晒嗰啲信用卡嘅債，因為信用卡嘅債咧個 interest rate 係好高嘅，成20% even higher。咁啊最緊要第一樣嘢咧就還晒啲債佢。還唔晒都好，即係要盡量還啦。咁第二咧就係有個 emergency fund，emergency 就係你緊急用嘅錢，要全部都係現金嚟嘅咧，即刻就要攞到。咁呢個現金咧最少要係6至9個月嘅。咁我哋問一問佢而家因為 COVID 啦，6個9至9個月夠唔夠咧？咁同埋佢話有一個 rule 就好緊要嘅，就係90至10%，90% 咧就要用喺你啲有需要嘅嘢啦，10% 咧就要拎去玩下，咁去旅行啊，去邊度都得。但係10% 一定要係現金。唔好用 credit card 又去 build up 好多 debt 去用嗰10%，所以呢個10% 嘅 rule 咧非常之有用嘅。咁如果你就再有額外咧，就可以投資啦，係咪？又可以擺你個退休金啦。咁我哋咧教問下佢投資之道啦。Thank you. That's a lot of good information. So for the emergency fund, you say about 6 to 9 months, right? But now the COVID is like last over a year. So should we change the rule?
Yeah. I think I've always said, I think an emergency fund, everyone's got a different opinion. Some say 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months. Some say a year. I think it's based on what you have in assets and how stable your job is. I think the more stable your job is, you could have less of an emergency fund because you know that it's more of a guaranteed job. I think especially if you're a small business owner, self-employed, you work on commission, I think you should have a longer emergency fund, maybe 6 to 9 months, because your job is not as certain. I think the more certain your job is, the less emergency fund you need. The most uncertain your job is, the longer your emergency fund should be. And that's just kind of a rule of thumb. And there's not a right or wrong rule with this. I just think it's important to have some liquidity because, as we've seen what's happened with COVID, people started using it.
Yeah.
And you're never going to get a perfect one. Put it that way.
Yeah, it's true. It's like everyone's situation is different, so those plans should adjust, right? I think I agree with you. So Brian 就話我問佢咁啊，emergency fund 而家就以前咧就係6至9個月啦，咁而家 Covid 都 over 1年啦，咁需唔需要我哋要擺多啲喺度咧？咁佢話 depend 你個份工啦，如果你份工係好穩定嘅，咁咧嗰個分唔使咁長嘅時間要，但係如果你嗰個譬如你做啲嘢係唔係好穩定嘅工作未必聽日又唔知有冇得翻工嘅，咁你嗰個分咧你就要擺得多啲同埋長啲啦。That is good. And also a lot of people like got the money, okay? It's like how should I invest? What should I do? Like what is the investment rule or how should I set up my portfolio? So maybe you can give some advice.
That's a great question. It's like, what do I do? Where's the first thing I do? Where should I invest in? How do I invest? How much? First rule of thumb I've always said to people is before we invest any money whatsoever, we need to have a game plan. You have to have a plan of what you want to do because people always say, I want to invest. That's a loose term. What do you invest in what? Because you might be someone who's very conservative. You might be someone who's very aggressive. It's just everyone's got different goals and objectives. What's your goal and objective with your money? Are you somebody that if you're someone who's young, maybe in your 20s or 30s, and you have a long time horizon, you could be more aggressive with your funds because you have more time. That's why I always tell people is, you talk to someone in their 20s and 30s, ask someone in their 50s or 60s, if you could go back in time when you were in your 20s or 30s, would you start investing? I would bet, I'm not really a betting person, I would bet 99.9% of people would say yes. They would go back in time to do that. So when you have more time on your hand, longer time horizon, the more aggressive you can be because you can ride out the ups and downs. The stock market is designed for long-term investing. I'm not a big fan of day trading. I think day trading is gambling on steroids. And I think we've seen that. So to me it's based on what your goals and objectives are and how you can handle the market. If your portfolio went down 20, 30%, are you going to be able to sleep at night? That's the question, because you know what, forget the market, your health's more important. Without your health and happiness, your money's irrelevant. So you got to understand, you have to weigh risk and understand that.
好啦，咁我問下 Brian 咧譬如我哋有現金啦，有錢啦，咁如果我哋想投資，點樣投資法咧？嗱，如果你pay 晒啲 credit card 啊嗰啲做晒啦，咁我哋仲有啲額外錢可以投資喎，點樣做法咧？咁佢第一樣嘢咧，最緊要係你要 set up 一個你嘅目標啦，同埋你要睇你自己嘅情況啦。譬如你年輕啲嘅咧，咁你可以take 多啲 risk 啦，冒險啲啦投資。咁同埋你handle 到幾多壓力咧？譬如你買股票，如果跌咗20-30%，你會唔會去跳樓咧？咁樣即係你要同自己問一問自己你個目標係啲乜咯 ？Yeah, and I know you have the very famous the 9 rule of investing. Can you explain a little bit more about that 9 rule? I really like it. It's very right to the point. So I think it's great to share.
Yeah, I have these 9 rules. I think the first rule is always you got to have a game plan. What's your plan when you're investing? Because it's just like a team in sports. It's like if you don't have a game plan before you go out into the field, you're going to lose the game. I don't care what anyone says. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a plan before you attack the field, to me, you're going to lose, or you're going to be behind. So it's just a matter of having a plan. Whatever that plan is, talking over with your advisor, or if you invest yourself, is I'm trying to, I'm buying XYZ stock for the next 5 to 6 years. I don't plan on touching this money. My plan is I'm going to put so much money in per month into my 401k. That's a great plan because I'm going to go long term. And, the key to investing is compound your money over a period of time. The longer you could do it, compound your money. That is how you become wealthy. And I always tell people that, you always look at, everyone's got either a famous athlete they like, singer, or actor. So I always tell people, I go, tell me your favorite singer, actor, athlete. So when everyone asks me, I go, okay, how do you think they became as great as they became? How do you think that happened? And people go, well, over time, exactly, over a period of time. Mm-hmm. So these great athletes and actors and singers, their first time they learned, and then they built and built and built. So that is the same thing. You want to become that famous celebrity type. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. Unfortunately, in today's society we live in, everyone wants that instant gratification.
Magic.
So, yeah, you want it just like that. And let me tell you something, realistically in the real world, that does not happen. Or sometimes you're going to get lucky. I always say I take some of my kids' technology skills, today's kids' technology skills, and I combine it with my grandmother's old time skills. I take those two and I combine them together. So it's kind of you take technology and some old wisdom, common sense, and that can make you become a millionaire one day.
OK, thank you。咁啊，我問Brian，佢咧就有一個好出名，要有9個 rule， 即係唔同嘅rule 係去投資嘅。咁第一個咧就係 game plan 啦，定要有 game plan 啦，問下自己你而家嘅想係點啦，擺幾多錢啦，你可以 afford 到幾多錢啦咁樣。咁第二樣咧就係你諗一諗你最中意嘅歌星啊，或者體育明星啊，究竟你中意佢啲乜？點解佢哋會咁成功咧？咁我就同佢講，主要係時間啦，因為用時間樣樣都你唔會一出世你就唱歌好叻，一出世你就會做嘢好叻咁樣，用時間去練翻嚟學翻嚟噶嘛。咁啊，同埋佢最緊要佢話成功咧，其實最緊要 compounding 咧就係話將一樣擺喺度，跟住咧就一路咁加上去，一路咁加上去，你先至會去到高峰點。你唔加上去咧就冇高峰點。Yeah, I explain what compounding means. So yeah, so it's great. So we have 4 rules. You mentioned solid the game plan and the favorite singer and the compounding and the time, right? So
right.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think also it's important rule is that, I think it's very, very important. And I always tell this to people whenever people have a meeting, I have a meeting with, you need to understand what you own and why you own it. I can't tell you how many times I will talk to people and they will ask me to look over their portfolio. And my first question to them is, can you tell me what you own and why you own it? And a majority of people cannot answer that question. So that tells me either your advisor is not a good advisor, or you have no idea what you're doing, unfortunately, or you're just buying things. That means you're randomly buying things that you don't even know why. So that is the first thing you need. I always tell people, understand what you own and why you own it. Because then the reason I say that is because if you understand what you own and why you own it, then you do not panic. Because what happens a lot of times in the market, people panic all the time. And you can see there's days where the market's down 5-10%. Last year, around March, you saw the market have a tremendous drop. And people are saying, what's going on? Well, people are panicking. They're selling. Why were they selling?
They think they have lost everything.
Yeah, they haven't lost anything. But if you had a game plan, like I always tell people, and my game plan was, I'm not touching this money for the next 7-10 years, then there's no reason to panic because this is a short-term blip. So if you understand what you own, why you own it, and you had your game plan, when the market goes down, that's more of an opportunity to pick up companies that are good quality companies and add them to your portfolio to keep it growing. So that's why it's important not to panic, because if you have a game plan, you don't panic because you already know what you're doing. And if you understand what you own and why you own it, you don't panic because you know why you own these companies. Good. Very important.
OK， 咁Brian 就話其他嘅第5個 rule 咧，就係一定要知道你點解買嗰個股票啦，同埋你點解會買，同埋你買啲乜嘢。如果因為你唔知道咧，你就會好恐慌啊！如果有啲個市跌咗啊，你就會好驚，因為你完全係唔知道發生啲咩事。咁如果你冇一個 plan 嘅話咧，譬如你個 plan 係我可以揸住啲股票要揸住5至10年嘅，咁你就唔會突然間咁樣賣晒佢噶啦。所以有一個 plan 好緊要，同埋你要明白點解你會買呢隻股票，同埋你買啲乜嘢嚟嘅。Yeah. So what is the next rule?
Well, the next rule is diversification. People go, diversification. What? I can tell you for a fact. And actually today I had a call with somebody and they were showing me their portfolio, and 68% of the portfolio was in just one stock. Just one stock.
I know some people like that.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's just
Scary.
and the stock is a good company, and I think it's a great company, but it's a matter of which I was telling her today is it's about risk though, risk adjustment. I don't care if Warren Buffett is running this fund. I don't put all my money into one person. I don't care if it's Warren Buffett at all. Yeah, I know one of the greatest investors of all time. Still, you want to spread out your risk because diversification is key. I know it's boring, but it's the fundamental sound way of having a portfolio because people always say, well, I should buy this, I should buy that, but they always forget one word. Everyone's go, well, you can make a higher return if you do this and that, but they always leave out this one word. It's called risk. How much risk am I taking? Obviously, the higher the risk, the higher the reward. So when you have a diversified portfolio, you're balancing. It doesn't mean you can't speculate and buy small cap companies that are up and coming. I encourage that, especially a lot of younger people who have a lot smarter than me with technology and up and coming things, is having a small percentage of the portfolio in up and coming companies, because those companies can make you a fortune and make up for a lot of losses, or it could just really compound your portfolio. But you want to make sure it's not all your money and it's a percentage of your portfolio.
So don't put all the egg in the one basket, right? You have to spread it out.
Exactly. It's a boring term. People don't really look at it in detail. They go, people are just caring about is the market going up. But again, it's long-term. Good diversified portfolio will win you the game. It's kind of like the tortoise and the rabbit. Just slow and steady, you will win the game.
OK，咁啊，另一個 rule 咧，阿 Brian 就好重要嘅，就係 diversification，即係要分得唔同種類嘅，要唔好全部買晒一個股票。好似佢話有一個 client 就68% 都係買一間公司嘅，咁變咗就好大風險喎，風險好緊要，因為咧你越係多擺晒啲嘢喺一個籃度，你嗰個籃跌咗你就乜嘢都冇晒㗎啦嘛，咁所以咧就最緊要分開佢好多個籃咁樣擺咧，你就會去安全啲，咁咧即係個風險冇咁大，亦都要長線咯，你咁樣長期咧就會贏㗎啦呢個 game，咁佢就好似龜兔賽跑咁，你慢慢你始終都會掂到終點嘅。This is a very good thing to remember.
Yes, it's experience.
Yeah, that's why we need you here to let us know what to do. So is there any other rule?
There's two more rules I would say that are important. I always tell people, it's kind of a sports thing, is don't listen to the boo birds. What I mean by that is that you're going to hear friends tell you things like, you'll say, well, I'm diversified and I've got maybe some blue chip companies. Oh, why do you want blue chip companies? They're so boring. I bought this company and this thing can go up 300%. Or you hear some of these analysts on TV, supposedly they're the best, these analysts, stock analysts, they'll tell you what to invest in. But here's the thing, they don't know your goals and objectives. They don't know your risk tolerance. So how are you able to tell me something that you don't even know my goals and objectives? I mean, you could be someone who's so conservative, maybe you're 40, 50 years old, and you're scared to death of the market. One little drop, you're going to panic. So you probably shouldn't even be in the market. And you should probably be making sure your credit card debt's paid off, have a goal of paying off your house. Yeah, just you want to be more conservative. But so I always tell people, don't listen to the boo birds. Someone's going to say, well, my advisor is telling me that I'm being too conservative. Well, you're investing based on what is best for you, based on your goals, objectives, and your risk tolerance. So don't listen to these boo birds, because you got a plan. Like, go back to the same thing. You got a plan. So you don't want to listen to the boo birds. That's really, really important. And lastly, the most important thing also, I think one of the most relevant things to do, and I always encourage this to people, is never be afraid to ask questions. And I've always said, there is never a dumb question when it comes to your money, period. So, people always say, I feel embarrassed. I got to ask you this question. I feel like an idiot. Don't feel like an idiot. Most people don't understand finances because we never taught anyone finances. I mean, no one took a high school class in Finance 101. We don't teach it in college. And, it amazes me how we do this. We'll teach Algebra 2, which someone's going to learn how to break down the quadratic formula, but we won't teach Finance 101 in high school where people can learn how to break down a mortgage payment. You tell me what's more important. So it's important. The only way to learn is to ask questions. I remember growing up, I was lucky. I had a grandfather who taught me at 13 years old about the stock market. He made me get a job at 13 because my grandfather came from the actual depression. So he lived in the actual depression. So a real penny was a real penny. So
actually,
it meant the difference between.
We have a grandmom like that too. That's why we're in the stock market. My kid is starting their portfolio because of my grandmom. She same thing, born in 1935, and that's how they encourage us to learn about the stock. Yeah, so we're lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. So you want to help. I think it's important to help if you've got a tool and you've learned something. I think it's important to give back to the community. I just think that's the way you make society better.
Yeah, that's true. So Brian 咧就最後講個後邊嗰最兩個 rule 啦，咁另外有一個咧就唔好 listen to the boober 咧就係即係身邊嘅人講嘢啦，因為有啲人又話誒買嗰隻好啊，嗰隻上升好多啊，又或者講好多嘢啦，咁佢話嗰啲人咧其實佢都唔知你個plan 係乜嘢，最緊要你自己個 plan 記住，因為你每人嘅情況都唔同啦，你年紀大同年紀輕買嘅嘢亦都唔同啦。所以其實最緊要係要睇翻你自己個 plan 有啲咩適合你咧，同埋你自己要知道你點解要買，點解要賣咧係好緊要，唔好就咁人哋話呢樣好啊，咁你就去聽啦。咁另外一樣嘢咧就係要問問題，唔會有好永遠都冇愚蠢嘅問題，你唔問問題就愚蠢㗎啦，所以一定要問問題，你係咁樣先至會學到好多唔同嘅知識啊，咁所以你係唔好驚去問問題，一定要去問問題，你先至會學到嘅。That is great. So we have to stick in the mind and remember this rule because I think it's very useful, a basic principle. I'm sure each part we can break down even how to do it is a lot to learn, you know. So and so if we have more time, we'll ask you to break down even more. And even one thing, diversification, portfolio, how do you do it? I think you're going to be like, wow, there's a lot to learn just one area. So but for now, I appreciate to give a guideline how to do it. And also I know right now is all-time high about the stock market. And so what do you recommend buying stock? What do you think?
Well, I have no problem people buying stocks. I think it's a matter of, do you have the time to do the research? Some people will have time and they can build their own portfolio by buying individual stocks. I think if you don't have the time to do the homework and research stocks, I think it's better to buy like an exchange traded fund or mutual funds where you already have the diversification, where you might be able to get with one ETF, maybe 50, 100 different stocks in one. So I think it's a matter of, do you have the time to do the research? Because, to me, I always say you have to be mentally prepared to buy stocks because you want to make sure you're buying stocks for the right reason, not because you want to try to day trade the market, which is happening a lot more now, because I think there's a reason why more day trading is happening is because a lot of these brokerage firms and all these brokerage firms now and these discount brokers will give you $0 trading. You don't pay commissions. So people then like, oh, I don't have to pay any commission, so I just keep trading the market. Meanwhile, to me, as I've said before, day trading to me is gambling on steroids, period. And I think but buying good long-term stocks that you understand. And I think one of the key ways to make money in the market, and I've always seen this over the years, been doing this 25 years, the people who made the most money in the stock market are the people who understand their industry and they research their industry. Wall Street is always 6 months ahead of everything. So right now the market really is priced in 6 months ahead of everything. So can you figure out your industry? What's going to happen in the next 6 to 9 months? And those are some companies you might want to look at. So it's a matter of doing your research and understanding what you own and why you own it.
OK， 咁我問Brian， 因為而家咧個 stock market 就係 all time high 啦，好高啦。咁我哋譬如買股票有啲咩要注意啊？咁佢話最緊要唔好做day trading 啦。一陣我問佢 day trading 點解嚇？因為佢話係好危險嘅 day trading， 同埋一定要明白你嗰個industry， 即係你買 股票嗰一行係咩啦？譬如你好似technology 啊，就要你知道你要熟悉 technology 同埋一定做好多 research 係搜集資料嘅。好似我上一集講過都係，你唔好就咁隨便買一個股票，你一定要搜集好多資料，你先至可以買到個股票嘅。如果你冇時間去搜集資料咧，就係買啲嗰啲 mutual fund 啦，咁你嗰啲咧就有人幫你 manage 個 fund，你就唔使自己去慢慢搜集資料啦。I have a couple of questions. So you talk about mutual fund, like any recommended mutual fund that you think is good to buy? Because it's good. A lot of people, I don't have the time to do a lot of research, and I don't really know about the industry. I don't really want to spend too much time. You mentioned about mutual fund, right? So which one do you think we should like save, like to get into?
Well, there's tens of thousands of different funds, but I think one of my favorites, and I personally own, and I've owned for many years, is an S&P 500 index fund.
Oh,
I
good. I own some too. That's good.
That's it. You're doing a good
My
job.
retirement plan is popular, right?
Yeah, no, I think, and it's low cost. I mean, it doesn't cost that much because, you know, the fees involved. A lot of times, some of these mutual funds, you want to look at what the expense ratios are, because some of these expense ratios, you know, it can make a huge difference over a 20-year period, how much thousands and thousands of dollars you could save in a different type of fund. But I think an S&P 500 index fund, I think, is probably one of the best funds to own. I said, especially for someone who's a brand new investor who's just getting into the market. And the reason I say that is because the S&P 500, you will understand these companies. You know what companies are in there, most of them. There's some of the biggest companies in the world: Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Apple, Boeing. Those are all recognizable companies. So you have 500 companies all at once, and you're diversified. So if one company has a terrible day in the market and it goes down 30, 40%, you still have 499 other companies. And I think also what happens is that when you have an S&P 500 index fund, at least to start, I think you better understand the market, the ups and downs with the market. And I don't think you will panic and sell because you recognize these companies, that these are companies that are here for the long term. I mean, Apple will probably be here for the long term, McDonald's, Microsoft. I mean, these are all worldwide, globally big companies, which is what you want. And I think also with the S&P 500 index fund, as with most other mutual funds, I think it's good to do dollar cost averaging, where every month you put in a small amount of money. I don't care what it is, put in a small amount of money, regardless of the market's going up or down. You want to set it as a bill. Every month I'm going to pay into my fund. I'm a dollar cost average, and you're going to get ups and downs in the market, which are fine. That's just the market. But it's about continuing to contribute and continuing to let the money compound is where you're going to see a big difference. I mean, you wait 10, 15 years and you see contributing money and compounding money, then you might call me and thank me. But, you know, in this industry, people don't realize what goes on. But, you know, I do it because I actually am very passionate and love what I do. But I just think that it's about time. It's the more time you can give it and you don't touch it. You know, it's like soccer. Don't touch the ball or there's a penalty. So don't touch these mutual funds, but let them grow. Let's let them grow. And 15, 20 years down the road, especially if you're young, you'd be amazed at what these things could compound into. Nothing's guaranteed, obviously, but you know, it's about his time over time. You know, you probably will see a big difference.
Yeah, that's why a lot of retirement account, they recommend you to buy those funds. So when you retire after so many years, then you have something to retire on, right?
Yeah, and also you think about it is, you know, a lot of us work hard. We've worked really hard, 30, 40 years. You're going to work 30, 40 years, and you're going to make money, and you want to make sure you want to show something for it at the end of it. It's so frustrating, especially in sports. A lot of people and actors and actresses, you ever hear these stories that athletes going broke, actors and actresses all going broke, singers? It's because they blew all their money. They thought, oh, I'm making millions and I can just spend like millions. And then things stop. And then it's like they go broke. You hear it all the time. So you want to be able to take like I always tell people, like just take 10% of your portfolio or 10% of your salary and just put it into your 401k or an IRA. And you'd be amazed over a long period of time what that could accumulate to. It could be millions of dollars.
Okay.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's great. So Brian 咧就話咁我問佢譬如我哋有 嗰個 mutual fund 啦，譬如應該佢有啲咩提議我哋買啲 mutual fund，就係我哋冇乜時間，你知㗎啦，誒冇乜時間去做 research 啊，又冇乜時間去認識啲 industry 啊，買啲 mutual fund 好咧，佢就話 SP500 index， 咁 SP500 index 我都有買喎，但係佢話好好嘅，因為咧個 cost 咧嗰啲 managing fee 就係低嘅，咁你就唔會話唔見咗好多錢啦，咁啊最好咧就係長遠啦，由即係最好你一做嘢開始就買啦，儲就每個月擺啲錢落去啦，一路咁 compound 嗰啲 interest 咧，到你好多年後咧，你就有筆退休金啊，非常之可觀嘅退休金㗎啦。咁而且佢就 recommend 個叫做 dollar cost averaging 咧，就係你約擺10%你嘅人工就去買呢啲分啊，或者做啲退休金啊，咁樣咧，你到去退休咧，你就有一筆可觀嘅退休金㗎啦。That is really good advice for that. And so, is there anything that one question? I know it's probably the no dumb question, right? So I'm going to ask.
There's no dumb. That's why we're not running for any office here either. So we just answer questions.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of special term and financial term. Not a lot of people will totally understand. You mentioned about day trading. What does that mean?
Yes. Day trading. Day trading is basically gambling, like going to Las Vegas. You want red or black on roulette. To me, that people think they have it, and I can't tell you the stories of day trading. I'm sure in the news you've seen, like, unfortunately, there was a story where a person was, I don't know, they were day trading, but it was a young person that supposedly owed $700,000 or something. He was buying options, and unfortunately, he committed suicide. And it was very sad. And unfortunately, stuff like this happens in day trading because people don't know the risks they're taking. And
what do they do in day trading? What do they do?
They'll try to think, okay, I'm going to leverage thousands of dollars. I'll leverage thousands of shares of a stock, or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in one stock. And hopefully today it goes up 15% or 10%. And then I'm going to sell it that day. My intention is
buy and sell in the same day.
Yeah, buy and sell the same day, or maybe within a few days. And it's just, to me, it's just a recipe for disaster, because you might make money on the first one, but then what happens is we get greedy, and then we think we're like nothing, we're invincible and we can do the next one. And then eventually what happens is all you need is one bad day in the market, they can wipe you out. So day trading is really dangerous. Also, what makes it even more dangerous, what adds to it, is that many people try to go on margin where they borrow money. And a couple of weeks ago, we had this with like Robinhood stop trading, and sometimes they halt trading in certain stocks, or only let you buy so many stocks. And a lot of people who are on margin, they're leveraging their stocks. The rule of thumb is I never buy on margin, ever, ever, ever. That's just bad advice. Buying on margin, where you're borrowing money, you're borrowing everything to buy stocks. So when you buy on margin and you're day trading, it's a double recipe for disaster. And it's just, yes.
I didn't put him outside.
Everyone loves it. Everyone, see dogs know everything.
You're smart to get your outside, and look at mine. It's happened. Sorry about that.
Dog, I should bring my dog in here. I have a golden retriever.
Yeah, you can show me. It's cute. Yeah.
She's a character art golden retriever, but it's, dogs know. Like I always say, love dogs, love kids, adults. That's what we say. Love dogs, love kids.
They can hear really good someone walking outside, and then
A dog's a good indication. Dogs know. But when you buy a margin, you're just putting yourself in more danger. And that's been a trend, though. Especially a lot of the younger generation, you never want to buy a margin. And I think a lot of the not even young generation, but a lot of people don't realize they get into day trading because they see a friend making money, so we got to follow. I call it the jealousy theory. My friend made money, so now I want to make the same money. So then they go, "What did you do?" I did this. You have no idea what you do. You day trade. You don't know, because it's not long term. When you're short term thinking in the stock market, you are day trading the market or short term trading the market, and it's a recipe for disaster. And I think you just get yourself. And another reason why, which is really important, especially for newer investors, when you're day trading and you've never invested in the market, what happens is you lose money, and you get so upset you've lost thousands and thousands of dollars. What happens is that you will never invest in the market again, and you're going to hurt yourself long term, because you're saying I got burned one time day trading, so I'm never investing in the market. So if I'm 25, 30 years old, the market long-term is a great way for someone 25, 30 years old to really build a lot of wealth. But you got a bad experience starting out because you were day trading the market and you lost quite a bit of money. You're gun shy now about going back into the market and you never get back in. So you're really hurting yourself to try to build long-term money for yourself, because now, especially someone young, your money now is going to be outpacing with inflation. So you need something that's going to help you keep up with inflation. Leaving your money in the bank earning very little interest, I mean, you're earning less than 1% in the bank, is not going to get you long-term. So that's another reason why people never talk about this, which is really important. Why I never encourage people to day trade or trade short-term is because I want you to think long-term, because you get burned one time, especially young, you're never going to invest in the market for the long-term.
So effectively mentally about,
the mental game. Just like sports,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you recommend when we get into the stock market, you plan for the long term. Doesn't matter the price fluctuate it, so you won't go jump off the building next day and you won't commit suicide next day, right? You just let it go and let it go and go for the ride. So go up and down, and eventually it will get there, right?
Well, the thing also, if you're younger, you actually want the market to have bad days and bad months because you're buying more shares at a lower price. So
that's you're compounding, too.
Yeah, you're compounding that money over a period of time. So you're buying more shares because you're not buying everything at one time. You're buying over the next 20 years. And you think about it, you're buying every month, maybe you're buying a little here, a little there, but it's over a long period of time. So you don't even think of it as investing. You're just paying a bill and you're going to see what happens 20 years from now. And you'd be amazed that.
That's why you want a company will last for a long time, because if he's there for, many years later, you won't be scared of that companies go away or go bankrupt, right?
And I think if you understand the company too, like the S&P 500 index fund, if you go through the index fund and look at all those companies, I would bet that most people would understand most of those companies. You would see those companies and go, oh, wow, that company's in there, that company's in there. I think you just mentally feel better going, okay, I drink Coca-Cola, or I eat at McDonald's, or I've flown in an airplane, which was a Boeing plane. They go, we're in a Boeing 737. So yeah, I've flown in this plane before. I use Microsoft, I use Apple. So, I mean, you realize these companies because you use them.
Great, OK。So 咁啊 Brian 咧就話我問佢 day trade 點解啦，因為係冇愚蠢嘅問題啊嘛，我哋都要問清楚佢。咁 day trade 咧佢就話係即係你一日內買，跟住嗰日就賣翻出去，或者幾日後賣翻出去，總之係好短時間去買同賣嘅就 day trade。咁佢話就千祈唔好咁樣做啦，因為咧係你買股票咧應該係 long term 係長線嘅，唔應該係短嘅，因為短線咧如果個價幾日後跌咗好多，你就會可能要自殺啊，或者跳樓啊，就好多人就係咁解啦。同埋唔好買 margin， 咁 margin 咧就係要借啲錢翻嚟買嘅。咁佢呢兩樣嘢咧，佢一定係唔會做嘅，因為係即係好危險嘅。佢話係咁啊，所以咧買股票其實應該係要係長線啦，所以要睇間公司好健康啦。咁你將啲價錢，佢啲價錢高啊、跌啊、低啊，其實都冇乜所謂。咁其實佢話啲價跌咧，其實都好喎，因為嗰個係有機會再買多啲嘅。咁其實好多即係買賣股票嗰啲知識都好重要啦嚇。So this is really great about the stock market. I learned so much just talking to you for such a short time. So I know if we investing is not just buying stock, right? It's kind of risky to buying stock too. We should have a portfolio and have all different things, right, for investment. So maybe next time you can explain to us, like if I set up my portfolio, what should be inside my portfolio and what the percentage distribution and what other thing we can invest to besides stock, right?
Yeah, there's other, I mean, it's, a lot of, some people, they have real estate, they own a piece of real estate and they get rental income. So that's like part of my portfolio is part of my real estate. You don't always have to be with stocks, and some people, you might have a percentage in technology, percentage in, you got the consumer goods, oil. I mean, there's so many different sectors. So you kind of want a little bit, that's like the S&P 500, you're getting a little bit of everything. But I think it's important to, you don't need, you could ask 1,000 different advisors you'll get 1,000 different portfolios because everything's different. There's not a cookie cut answer to how to do an exact portfolio. But that's why I think in order to get the proper portfolio for somebody, it's a matter of asking these basic questions: goals, objectives, time horizon. Obviously, the longer the time you have, the more aggressive you can be. So you can buy maybe more technology, more small cap companies that can potentially grow over a longer period of time. If you're someone who's nearing retirement, we still probably want some money in the stock market, but we might have more emphasis towards bonds because we need to generate more conservative income, because most people, when they're nearing retirement, they're living on Social Security and probably distributions from their 401k or IRAs, and they probably just need so much income. I mean, the goal really is to make sure that when you do retire, you're not earning any more income, that your portfolios will generate the income for you so you can live a happy life and not have to worry about draining principal. Because I think that's one of the biggest problems today is many people who are taking money from their portfolio, they're really draining the principal, and once principal starts decreasing, it can go at a rapid pace. So it's really important to structure portfolios where, my goal is always say, people always say, when do I have enough money? When the dividends and interest that you're generating are enough to pay for all your bills. That's
so
really
everyone
kind
different.
of
It depends on your how your spending habit and everything, right? So really,
some people can be happy with 2,000 a month and they're fine. Some people need 20,000 a month. Everyone's different. So it's just everyone is different. Also, the key also is, do I have a paid off house? Now, some people who've got a paid off house, they're not going to need to generate as much income, because usually about a third of your monthly budget is going towards your mortgage or property taxes. So, if a paid off house, you probably don't need as much risk in the market because you have enough money probably generating from just your portfolio to live the lifestyle you want. So, everyone's different. And that's why it's important when you talk to an advisor that he or she asks you these questions and you feel comfortable with the person. I mean, that's really important. You got to make sure you trust the person. I mean, that's number one. Making sure you trust the advisor, making sure they understand your goals and objectives, making sure they're educated properly, making sure they're implementing the right strategy for you. And I think by you doing your own homework and research and showing these advisors that you know what you're talking about, I always say be on your A game. When you're on your A game, when it comes to an advisor, you are going to have it's going to be much easier because these advisors know that, hey, I'm on my A game. This advisor knows that, and they're going to make sure everything's tip top. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone probably want to talk to Brian personally too. He do consultant too. So at the end, you can give me the link. If people interested to talk to you, they can contact you. And I know investing, insurance also is a part of a very important investment subject issue, right? Maybe next time you can elaborate more about the insurance.
Yes, insurance is, I call it the unsung hero of the game. It's that player that we never talk about, we never even think about. We pay a premium, we don't even know what we own. Most people, if they break out their insurance policy, they have no idea what they own. I mean, people know exactly what type of life insurance they have, or disability insurance, homeowners, renters, auto insurance. Most people probably don't even know exactly what they own. And some people are underinsured. I mean, a majority of people are really underinsured. And problem is that only time we look at it is when we need it. And then you're going, why do I only have this? I mean, there's things that I've seen that have just would blow your mind away. But, I think, there's like five basic insurances that I think, I call it my starting five for basketball, the starting five. I mean, health insurance is number one. You got to have health insurance. And especially in today's world, I mean, health insurance premiums are outrageous. I've seen it's way too expensive, but we need it. So I think it's really important to make sure that when you look at health insurance, like, okay, how much am I paying, comparing prices. Also, I think it's really important is making sure your doctor is in your plan, because if you go out of network, it can cost you a fortune. So one tidbit I always tell you, yeah, no, I'm saying I mean, I've seen it. I mean, when you do something for 25 years plus, you've seen everything. So I could probably tell you, it happens all the time with health insurance. So it's important to make sure, is my doctor in my network? Because you go out of network, it can be
expensive.
And obviously your health is the most important thing. So, a lot of people some people I talk to, they don't even have health insurance. And it's so important because you could have that's one of the biggest causes of bankruptcy is medical debt. So that's important. Health insurance, really important.
OK， 咁Brian 咧就話咁我哋投資唔係淨係股票啊，同埋好多嘢都可以投資，要買屋啊，買 bond 就好多嘢都可以投資。咁但係咧就要即係其實每一個 portfolio 差唔多可能要度身訂做咯，因為每個人嘅目標啊同埋需要都唔同啦。啲人退咗休可以幾千蚊一個月就得㗎啦，啲人咪要幾萬蚊嘅咁所以其實要揀一個好嘅即係幫到你去 plan 呢樣嘢反映嘅人都好重要嘅。咁除咗portfolio 之後啦，其實保險都好緊要嘅。如果投資，因為保險裏邊其實有好多嘢你都要需要知。咁我哋下一次翻嚟咧就問下 Brian 咧，就係保險點可以幫到我哋去慳錢啊，或者係整even賺錢喎。咁我哋下一次翻嚟問下佢啦。Okay, thank you. But next time we'll come back. We'll talk about more insurance policy. How we're going to help us to increase our wealth and our maybe even help ourselves to build our portfolio. So thank you. Next time I'll see you. We'll talk about the insurance. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Hi，多謝大家收睇我嘅節目，記得 subscribe and 俾 like 啦。